I'm going to solve this equation and justify all of the steps using the algebraic properties. So the equation is 3/4 x plus 4 equals 16. The first thing to do is subtract 4 from both sides. I'm going to add a -4 since adding a negative is the same as subtracting. And I'm doing it to both sides. So that property, where you do the same thing to both sides, it's a property of equality. It's either the addition or the multiplication. Since we're adding the same thing to both sides, it's the addition property of equality. If we were multiplying, it would be the multiplication property of equality, but since we're adding, it's of course going to be the addition property of equality. Simplify here, 16 plus a -4 is 12, and 4 plus a -4, those are the same number, opposite signs, so they're inverses of each other. Two numbers opposite signs equal 0. That's the inverse property. The inverse property of addition. Same number, opposite signs, inverses. When it's the inverse property of addition, it equals 0. So +4 and -4 equals 0. We'll bring down the 3/4 x because nothing changes there. Plus 0 equals 12. Now 3/4 x, can't forget the x there, 3/4 x plus 0, that's really the same as 3/4 x. That's identical. The 0 doesn't really need to be there. We can take that away and it's identical. So that is the identity property. Okay, let's write this again so we have some more room and so it's not so messy. Okay, 3/4 x. Now we want to multiply that on both sides by a number that's going to cancel out the 3/4. The number that's going to do that is 4/3. And that, if you want to see that, why that's going to work, 4/3 times 3/4. If you multiply, remember how to multiply fractions, you multiply the top and you multiply the bottom. 12/12 equals 1. So those, they cancel out. Anyway, so what we're going to do, we multiply this side and we multiply the other side by 4/3. This is doing the same thing, multiplying the same number on both sides, multiplication property of equality. We're doing the same thing to both sides. Okay, now see how over here we talked about why we picked 4/3 and 3/4. It's because it's an inverse, and when we multiply them they become 1. So 4/3 times 3/4 is 1x. That equals 12 times 4 is 48 divided by 3. Now 1x, 1 times x is really identical to x. That equals 48 divided by 3, which is 16. Now when we took away that 1x is the same as x. That's identical. That's the identity property. And there's our solution. X is isolated. We have our solution of x equals 16. We want to go back and check that here. So 3/4 times 16 plus 4 equals 16. So 3/4 of 16, 3 times 16, that, let's see, 3 times 16 is 48 over 4 plus 4, 12 plus 4, 16. Okay, so that checks.